This is a great old house that's got some great old hardware on it, especially the doorknobs, the brass hardware. We're going to be polishing that up, and we're going to be making that pop so that when somebody walks through the house, they're going to see some really great, what many people like to call house jewelry, stuff that makes things really pop within the house. Brass doorknobs like this pick up oxidation over time. It's the oils and the grease from your hands. Every time you grab that, it starts to break down the lacquer coat, which is on top of that doorknob. And when it begins to break down completely, then those oils and greases will actually start to attack the metal. And it actually has the same process that rust has. So what we want to do here in this first step is to take some lacquer thinner and apply it to some quadruple aught steel wool, which is the finest steel wool you can buy. Crack open your lacquer thinner. Anytime you work with chemicals like this, you want to work in a well-ventilated area. You want to pour it just enough into a small container like this, making sure you don't splash. And you can also be wearing these great blue gloves. So lacquer thinner will evaporate real quickly. So if you find that you pour a little bit into your container and about 2 or 3 minutes later it's all gone, it's not because it spilled, it's because it's evaporated. It evaporates so quickly. It'll suck the moisture right out of your hands too when you're working with it, so that's why working with these gloves makes a big difference. So you can break off a chunk of this steel wool, just tears nice and easily. And use the container as a catch. And just work that in. And the idea here is to cut through some of that lacquer, that's that top coat, and give you access. You can see it's already starting to break down. And the steel wool is nice and fine, so it doesn't scratch or mar the finish, but it gets into the pits, the kind of the microscopic cavities of the surface of this. Certainly on the smoother surfaces, it's going to really take it off nice and quickly. But the more pitted the surface is, like in the interior of this, the more difficult it is. And so you really just kind of take your time with it. Use plenty of the solution. One of the concerns with the backplate is you want to be careful about how you're applying the solution, because if you let it run down here, it's going to run down onto the surface of the door. You want to be real careful about that. This lacquer thinner will eat right through that finish too. Next step, after you have a chance to get as much of that grime off as possible, is you can come back through with a nice brass polish, something called, I like to use Brasso. Well, you want to make sure that it's shaken well, because it'll have a chance to, oftentimes it'll separate within the container. And if you can give it a chance to dry on there, it'll work even better. This stuff is really strong in terms of smell. You're going to just kind of sponge it in there, getting it into as many of the crevices as you can. This is nice too where you have the gloves, because you can kind of mush it into the spots that really need it most. Change the location of your towel or your rag, find a nice clean spot, and then just wipe off as much of the excess as you can. That's actually that tarnish that's coming clean like that. And you don't want to, and the reason for changing location is you don't want to continue to just mush that and rub that into the crevices. The more often that you change, the more likely it is that you're going to be picking up new and getting rid of it. This is actually what's nice about using an old t-shirt, is that it has a little bit more flexibility to it, and you can work it like a polishing wheel almost. So you can see that's really starting to polish out the areas. The flat surfaces are really gleaming, and the corrugated and knurled and gnarly surfaces are even starting to get even more clean as a result. Brasso is a polish, but it's also a cleaner. So it'll do double duty, for sure. The great part about polishing old is it gives a sense of history to the space, gives it a nice friendly feel.